Smart Wi-Fi 150 from Shaw Business is our smartest business internet ever. It has our fastest speeds, smart. It has 3 dedicated connections to keep your work network separate from guests, smart. And it has insightful reports and a custom welcome page, double smart. It even has a smart radio voice.
Aw, thanks for the introduction.
Actually, I was talking about me.
Huh. Power your business with Smart Wi-Fi 150. Details at shawbusiness.ca.
But she's good too.
Blog Talk Radio.
This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration. My name is Lori Ann Smith. I'm just glad to be here. Good morning. It is Monday morning, July 31st, 2017, 7 o'clock here in the morning. I'm just waking up having a coffee. Glad that you can be here. Thanks for joining me here. I really appreciate it. This is just a morning reflection. Really just helps keep me on my healing journey so that I don't put it off and, sort of go for 6 months to a year not working on what I should be working on. So that's why I'm doing these shows, and hopefully they're helpful for somebody else. And it just keeps me on track. And that's what we're doing. So it's really just a morning reflection, looking at positive reinforcement. What can I do to sort of help myself in self-care, coping mechanisms, things like this to remind me of things that are useful in my healing journey. So hopefully they'll help you out too. So, if you're a survivor and you're just listening to this and you're just starting your healing journey, you want to be really careful listening to stuff like this, anything to do with abuse at all. So if you're not sure if you're safe enough to really be listening or not, make sure you're safe enough before you do. And you can get that information like many places. ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a Morris Center program has a Survivor to Thriver workbook that's free on their website. You can get that for free. You can just read it there, or you can download it or whatever. And they have a safety first chapter. It's like 60 pages long. I read it a few times, and it's really worth looking at. So that you can get information there, or on havoca.org, Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse. .org. They have a safety section as well. So make sure you're safe enough before you listen to anything like this. So if you're not sure if you're going to be, if it might trigger you and cause you to be, have a miserable day, which you don't want, or if it's just going to cause you to struggle and go backward in your healing journey, you don't want that either. So make sure you're safe enough. If you're not sure if you're safe enough that you're going to maybe hurt yourself or somebody else, get that information first before you listen to anything like this. And turn this show off, and you would not be hurting my feelings at all, right? Because I talk about abuse, I'm talking about abuse. That's what I'm talking about. It's very sensitive, and as a survivor, we all know these things can trigger, so you have to make sure you're safe enough this morning to be listening. If not, just turn the show off, no problem, and get some help. And don't struggle on your own. It's terrible. And if you're anybody else, just listen at your own discretion. I'm talking about abuse, a serious, very sensitive topic. And, you want to make sure that it's really ultimately your choice to listen. So make the right decision for yourself. And just listen at your own discretion. So we'll get right into this. We are looking at Havoca's website. Havoca's got some great info. I did pop that link into the chat room for anybody who wants to check that out. www.havoca.org, Havoca, Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse. This is what we've been looking at for a while now. They have some good stuff on their website. I hope you'll check it out. This is a great website. There's this whole survivor section. That's what we're looking at. And we're looking at feelings. We're looking at Fear of Feeling by Margaret Paul. And this is the last part of this one section dealing with feelings. So it's called Fear of Feeling by Margaret Paul. So we're just looking at this morning. I'm just reading right from the website. I think this is really interesting, and it's the last part of this section. So they said here, we desire to find the path to peace, joy, and freedom. We strive to feel lovable, worthy, and secure. We know that if we do our inner work and open to our connection with Spirit, we will feel all of that. Yet we don't. We put it off for days or weeks. We stay stuck in our misery or numbness. Why? What are we so afraid of if we open up to learning about loving? This Margaret Paul is a PhD professional consumer inner bonding. She's got a website, Inner Bonding, and there's like a free course on there. I signed up for the free course one time and I didn't get it. I didn't get the link to it, so I don't know what happened there, but it looked really interesting to me. So you can check that out. Just type in your browser Margaret Paul or Inner Bonding, stuff like that. You'll get her website. She's got some good info there. She's got videos that you can watch and stuff like that. Some of their stuff is not free, but some of it is, and I did check some of it out, and it looks like it's really interesting. So this is her. This is what she's saying. What are we so afraid of if we open up to learning about loving? So she says here, I've searched for many years for the answer to this question. Over and over, I would find myself out of grace and joy and into anxiety and stress. And each time it was because I failed to take care of myself in some way. And the problem is that all feelings are in the same box. Pain is in the same box as joy. We cannot be putting a lid on pain without putting a lid on joy as well. And so that's interesting. All feelings are in the same box. Pain is in the same box as joy. So that means pain or anything we're feeling is in the same box. Any bad feelings that we have are in the same box as the good feelings. It's quite interesting. What is the pain we are striving so hard to avoid feeling? Most people feel a lot of pain. We feel anxious, frightened, depressed, hurt. Since we are often in pain, it doesn't seem to make sense that we are, at the same time as we are feeling all this pain, also avoiding pain. Yet that is exactly what we are doing. As unhappy as we may be feeling, we are avoiding pain that we believe is even greater than the pain we are feeling. So she says, I have discovered that there are 3 feelings which most people want to avoid at all cost: aloneness, loneliness, and helplessness. So this is just really quite interesting what she's had to say here. It's the feeling work is, dealing with the emotional trauma, really. Anybody who's been traumatized, anybody on the planet who's been here long enough has been traumatized in some way. You just can't escape that. It'd be great to live a life with no emotional wounding, with no wounding. Period. It isn't going to happen. It's not the world we live in. And so this article is interesting for me because this is sort of where I was at when I started my healing journey, like back in really 2009. I had started it really in 2007, but I didn't do any real work on anything until 2009. I didn't start my real work on the healing journey for 2 years. I just, I had no idea where to start. And so in 2009 is kind of where I really started looking into information. But trying to avoid pain, of course, because it hurts. So this is why people do this. She said, what is the pain we're striving so hard to avoid feeling? It's painful, this stuff. It's, it's hard to face what's caused this pain. And that's where I was at, almost 10 years ago. I had been trying to avoid this pain from being abused as a child and the horrific stuff that I witnessed and was made to be a part of growing up, and then the bad choices that I made because of it. It's just, I'd been trying to, it's not like I was in denial, but I just kept pushing it down. And it was just like this cemented layer cake that was so old and so cemented because it was so old, all of this horrible, horrible stuff that was just weighing me down. I could feel the pressure. It was like I knew at some point I was going to have to allow this stuff to come out and to come up, and deal with it. But when and where, I didn't know. I just knew that at some point it was going to blow. And because I had been avoiding these things, and avoiding the pain, avoiding this, and just so I could survive. And I think that's many times why people do this, It's not so much that we're just trying to avoid it because we're just wimps and we don't want to deal with it. A lot of times it's too much. It's just too much to deal with. it's kind of like, where do you start? You know? And I wish that I would have got help. Like, this is where I tell people, I don't trust counselors and therapists and stuff like that. I really don't. I don't trust one-on-one anything, And really, it's understandable. I've been wounded by people in my past that should have been there for me. I don't trust really anybody because you really can't, But there are people out there that are good that aren't out to hurt people. You just have to run into them. It's hard to find those people, but they're out there. So for me to try to find a counselor or therapist that I actually trusted would be really difficult. I'd have to go through so many before I even could make a connection in order to do the work. So I just do self-help, right? And I have had some help with 2 really helpful ladies out of Australia who helped me out with the program Your Envisioned Mind. But other than that, I'm doing this on my own because I'm not about to listen to somebody else trying to manipulate me in any way, shape, or form. So I don't trust. There you go. I don't trust counselors and therapists because they're people too, and I know that even in their sincerity, I won't be able to tolerate any kind of garbage coming from them. So I'm like, I don't think so. I'll do self-help. And for me, that's just the way it works. But I would say whatever you do, there was anonymous help. I did get some anonymous help. It's just by joining anonymous support groups. But whatever you do, make sure you get some help. But don't struggle on your own. Some people will find good counselors and therapists. I've talked to lots of survivors who have found people that can help them out. That's great. And that makes me happy, for them, because I'm like, well, that's good. We shouldn't be struggling on our own and suffering on our own. This is horrible. But many times, I don't think we push these feelings away just to avoid feeling. I think the pain is too much. That's where I was when I first started my healing journey. The pain from the afflicted psychological, emotional, physical damage done, the child sexual abuse was just too much. And of course I shoved it down there just so I could make it through the day. I had to do something to be able to make it through the day. I did a lot of drugs, from the time I was like 12. I smoked a lot of pot, did a lot of drugs from 12 to 21 to try to avoid the pain, which was really great because it helped keep me sane in a very insane situation. But, it doesn't work as an adult, right? 21, I got off the drugs. Smartest move I could make, I think. I didn't do any work, I just kept that stuff shoved way down there. And I knew at some point it was going to be a serious problem for me because I knew it was there, all the pain from the abuse that I suffered as a child and just watching my family be destroyed by these horrible decisions my parents were making and horrible stuff that was going on, how they were going to treat each other and their children. It was absolutely ridiculous. And as my family members started to drop and dwindle from suicide, drug overdose, and murder and everything else, and nobody had gotten any help, and my parents were still abusing each other and just abusive to all their children. This stuff was never going to go away. It's not like it was going to get better. I had to go out and get my own life better, and it's taken me a long, long time. It took me to the age of 42 just to not kill myself. The age of 42, I decided that's it. I'm living. I am absolutely going to live, and I'm absolutely going to make some healthy choices and proper, correct, right decisions for myself as an adult. This is ridiculous, and I couldn't believe that I had allowed myself to struggle from the age, from the age where I could have, legally left my abusers behind. Let's just even say 18, or 16, somewhere in there, 17, 18, where I could have, been on my own and gotten some help. Right? I struggled on and on and on with this stuff, and it's not like I just wanted to avoid the pain. So that, sometimes I think people just think that survivors are just, wimps that can't handle anything. That's just not true. The pain is too intense. It's too deep. The wounds are too deep. You can't put a Band-Aid on it. Band-Aid's not gonna do it. This is stuff that requires major surgery, as far as emotions go and feelings. This pain is horrific, and so I kind of like what that she's even just addressing this stuff, and it's good because it helps us to see where we're at. So she says, I've discovered that there are 3 feelings which most people want to avoid at all costs: aloneness, loneliness, and helplessness. Aloneness is what we feel inside when we are disconnected from God. Now, she's obviously a spiritual person. Some people would say aloneness is what we feel inside when we're disconnected from whatever our higher power is, I would say. because I'm a Christian, but not everybody is, and so I don't bring my Christianity into my stuff here, right? Because I was abused by a Christian, so I know other survivors have been in the same boat, and I had problems with God, like I talked about seriously on all my shows along, most of the time, is the fact that I just, I was so angry at God, I cursed him. I didn't want anything to do with him because I believed in him. I just cursed him, and so I've got this Christian background that, I was abused by a Christian, and then angry at God for allowing the abuse to happen in the first place. And so a lot of people just have problems with that. So I don't bring spirituality into this particular show, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. I do that on other stuff that I do, like Ustream videos looking at sort of that sort of thing in a spiritual aspect, if anybody wants to check those out. So I do, like, one of them anyway is dealing with that stuff. It's biblical counseling information, but it is very much my story, again, just with the Christian, my Christian walk. I don't really mix that here with this because I know myself before I really became spiritual, let's just say, back in 2007, if somebody would have mentioned God or something spiritual to me or the Bible or anything, I would have just shut them out. I didn't want to hear it. I was like, look, don't tell me about this God of yours. I don't want to hear it, And so I don't mix that with this, but I think what she said here is interesting. Loneliness is what we feel when we cannot connect with one another, either because our heart is closed, their heart is closed, or both of our hearts are closed. Helplessness is what we would feel when we want to connect with another and his or her heart is closed, and we accept that there is nothing we can do to make them open their heart. Helplessness is what we feel when we accept our lack of control over others. And so she says, when we were babies and small children, we couldn't allow ourselves to feel these feelings. We could not have handled them and may have died of despair. So we learned many protections to avoid feeling these feelings. And so, as an abuse survivor, growing up abused, I wasn't loved until the age of 12 and taken care of till the age of 12 and then abused. I've been abused since I was born. That's all I knew. So, yeah, pretty horrific. I think it would have been worse if I had been taken care of and loved and cared for until the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then abused. That would have been even worse, I think. For me, I grew up abused. That's what I knew. I wasn't expecting anything else, really, until I got older. When I was really little, it was just the way our house was. This is the way the life was, right? When I got older, I started to sort of, you're in school and the teachers are teaching you about, we love our family and we love our parents and you start feeling these feelings and it's like, yeah, I do. I love my parents and my family but it's so painful. It's so painful because that's never going to be reciprocated. So these things, this is really hard then as an adult to be stuck with the knowledge that, knowing that relationship is never going to happen. So, what she's saying here, helplessness is what we feel when we accept our lack of control over others. Well, of course, you can't control others. It doesn't work. I could never get love from my parents, no matter how I tried. It didn't matter how good I was, or anything else. Or what I did for them. I could never gain or win or warrant my parents' love, right? And so, that is a sort of, I agree with her. That's a bit of a sense of helplessness, right? And it's never, especially as a young person. Now that I'm older, I could see that it just wasn't going to happen. And my inner children are the ones who are feeling the rage and the pain from that. My adult self understands, but my inner self from my childhood my little inner wounded selves don't understand it. Pretty horrible. So I have to get in touch with this stuff. See, and this is very difficult. So she says, the problem is that we still think we will die if we feel these feelings. So we are still avoiding them. We avoid connecting with God for fear that God will not be there and we will feel alone. We get angry, withdraw, eat, drink, take drugs, watch TV, get busy, overwork, and so on to avoid feeling the pain of our loneliness and helplessness. And I think that's true. I think that's what I was doing. I was doing anything and everything to avoid the pain. So that's what she's basically talking about here. It's quite interesting. And you can pick up the rest of this. We'll look at the rest of this article on Friday, but you can pick that up. Fear of Feeling, that's from Havoca, Havoca, Havoca.org. So next up, positive reinforcement. What are we doing right in our daily walk? Looking at positives, progress instead of negative thoughts all the time. What am I doing right in my daily walk? Well, first of all, just trying, every day to keep going on my healing journey. Keep trying to take care of myself. Do the proper things, get the proper rest. Eat right, which I never do. Try to just do some more self-care stuff, which is really important. At least I'm trying. I would say that's a positive reinforcement. I'm still working on it. So that's something we can always find something to be positive about, even if it, other people may look at that and say, well, that's not really, doing anything. It's like, well, you know what? Yes, it is. If I got out of bed this morning and put one foot in front of the other, it's like, I think that's pretty good, especially for a Monday morning. So, they have to look at the positives, right, not the negatives. There's so many times, we could get down on ourselves and we could just become really discouraged, and it's too easy, right? Way too easy. So I think it's really important to look at the positives and see what we've done right in our daily walk. This weekend I took it easy. I didn't overdo it. It was too hot here anyway, and we have a bit of a heat wave going on where I live right now. No air conditioning, just a little fan. So I'm just taking it easy and not overdoing it, not putting too much stress and pressure on myself to get things done. I'm not making huge lists and trying to get everything done all at the same time. I'm just sort of setting these small goals. I got to get this done, this done, this done, and so I think that's a positive. I'm not overdoing, not over, trying to do too much, which then puts pressure on me and sort of causes me to struggle, especially with the area of like, well, I can't do it. I can't do anything right, Then I start getting down on myself. So I think this is where this is a problem. That's why we have to be careful with that and look at some positives instead of just being negative all the time, right? Affirmations from problems. This is also from Havoca. This is looking at their affirmation section, getting started affirmations, and it's the top tips, right? We looked at, Friday we looked at list your qualities. And this morning we're looking at affirmations from problems. You can turn problems and discomfort into affirmations, they said. First, write a simple statement about your discomfort or problem. What is the core belief surrounding your problem or discomfort? So what is the core belief surrounding your problem or discomfort? So if I have any kind of issue going on, like today, something come up, write it in a single sentence, they said. For example, I don't measure up in my relationships. So now invert the sentence. Write out the exact contradiction of this. So, example, I am complete, whole, sufficient, thoroughly mature, and responsible in all my relationships. I like that. So yeah, if some core belief is bothering me today, like, stuff that will come at me and hit me late, like throughout the day, especially if things aren't going right, because I wasn't allowed to feel as a child. Obviously, abused children are not allowed to express their feelings, right? And so if I'm having kind of a hard day, especially at work or whatever, or something's going on, and then I get upset about it, because I've gotten upset about it, then I beat myself up for it, just like I would have been beaten as a child. So I'm my own abuser, basically. Then I'm feeling bad about myself it's kind of like a self-torture thing. It's like, okay, you're just an idiot. You're a bad person. You're this, you're that. Never should have been born. You're just rotten and evil, and this stuff just runs through my mind. So I guess if something like that comes up, today, I could just negate that. I could write down that core belief, that very toxic core belief about that I'm working on, that's causing me problems or discomfort. For instance, I'm never going to make it, and I should have just been born stillborn. That's what my mother used to tell me. I should have just been born dead with the other stillborn babies, right? Because she loved to throw that out at me. So I was born out of rape, right? She didn't want me. 2 were born before me, but they didn't make it. They were stillborn. So she would have had 10 children, but 7 of us made it. There was 3 actually in there somewhere, but 2 just before I was born actually didn't make it. And so she used to tell me, you should have just been born dead with like the other stillborn babies. That's what she would tell me. Really horrific, right? So I just grew up, really believing that I should have just been dead, right, my whole life, right? Absolutely horrific. And this is so when something like that comes up, then all of a sudden I'm thinking, I don't deserve to be here anyway. I'm just useless, worthless, this and that, right? this stuff just rolls through my head, right? It's just this inner abuser stuff coming from my mom mainly. And so what I can do is write it down and say, no, I can write that down and say, yeah, you just should have been born dead with the other stillborn babies. Then I can negate that and say, I deserve to live like every other human being on this planet. I deserve life. And I made it. I'm here. And I do the best I can every day to be good to myself and good to others. So as soon as I hear that core belief, that horrible, toxic things that my mother used to tell me, I could write them down and then negate it and really start writing this stuff out. So that, like they say here, they said here, I'm a complete, whole, sufficient, thoroughly mature, and responsible in all my relationships. What was getting me down, they said here, provided the key to a very powerful affirmation, one that is exactly what the doctor ordered. So find another person you trust, they said, and say your new affirmation out loud. Verbalize it with eye contact. And the core belief will pull at you the first time you say this, but continue saying it with eye contact 10 or 15 times. And you will notice that the energy surrounding the core belief dissipates as you continue saying the new affirmation. So they said use this technique as a powerful way to work with negative beliefs. Invert your negative belief and turn it into positive affirmation. As the negative belief is recognized, think what the exact contradiction would be, and then verbally practice the contradicting statements aloud with increasing sureness, genuineness, and power. Make this statement until you can say it very powerfully and genuinely. So that's awesome, and I really like that. That's very important, I think, because anybody could have these things going on in their lives. Any core belief that says we're not good enough, I'll never make it, I'm stupid, I'm worthless, whatever these issues are. We need to negate that. Got to find a way to do it. So, that's sort of the end of that part of it. That was top tips from Hovoka, and they had visualization, reminders, writing power, people power, recordings, word power, list your qualities, and affirmations for problems. So I like that. It's very, very good. It's good to remember this stuff because these things can help. They really can. Just have to do it. We have to do the work. Friday we'll look at this particular section. This is what I wanted to look at: positive self-talk. I think this is really interesting. So that's what we'll look at on Friday. And we have about 4 minutes left. Let's look at some coping stuff. Self-care. What am I doing actually? What am I doing? Self-care. What am I doing to physically, emotionally, spiritually care for myself? How am I doing? I can ask myself this. Well, I'm very slow on the self-care stuff as far as physical stuff goes, because I just let my physical body go, because my physical body to me is damaged, right? I mean, I was abused, sexually abused, physically. I don't really like my body that much. I was made to hate my body. I was made to hate myself. And so I don't really like it. You know what I mean? But I have to take care of it because it's got to get me through here while I'm on the earth, right? So it's like, okay, what can I do to try to help myself, Besides, I've kind of been working on detrimental, trying to kill myself for years. So I'm like, what can I do to help myself? It's like, well, I could try to eat better, get some physical exercise like of some sort. So I bought a rower, which I haven't used for 2 years. It's sitting here. It's very dusty. It's sitting right in front of me, but I just don't want to get on it. I used to like to row, but that was after I broke my ankle and I had to get walking again. So I just hate exercise, and I really just like to sit around in my own stuff and just sit and read and work on stuff, whatever it is. Really not into physical exercise, right? So I have to force myself to do this. So I'm working on that. This is very interesting. And it's important, right, to do this stuff. If we put it off, I watched my mom allow herself to just go completely down. But she was abused. She was abused as a child. She was abused by her husband. She didn't take care of herself. She was a mess. I mean, my mother was a mess. Had 10 babies, 7 of them lived, 3 did. So we have to really be, think about what we're doing, and be good to ourselves, on every level for self-care, physical, spiritual, emotionally. We can do these things to help ourselves out, right? We have about a minute left here. So let's see. Actually, Friday we'll look at some coping mechanisms and creating safe environments. I think that's interesting. That's from you can type it into your browser, Irving Studios or Child Abuse Survivor Monument. Just type that in and you'll get that under their Survivor tab. I like these Brainy quotes here. This is from Brainy quote. Never, never, never give up. Winston Churchill. That's what I always say. Never give up. Never, never, never. And also, only I can change my life. No one can do it for me. Carol Burnett. I really like that. That's exactly right. Only I can change my life for the better. Only I can make things better for myself. Nobody else can. So I like what Carol Burnett said there. Only I can change my life. No one can do it for me. We have to do it, right? So we've got a minute left. Thanks for being here, everybody. Take good care of yourselves. If you're struggling, you're having a hard time. I say this on every show because, it's really important because I know how hard it is. And sometimes we don't have people to talk to, We don't have anybody in our life who can help us. We don't have anybody there. You call a crisis line. You do whatever you have to do. Or get anonymous help. Just go on to these anonymous websites, That's what I did at first when I first started my healing journey. Make sure you get help. Don't struggle on your own. And have a wonderful week, everybody. We'll talk to you on Friday.